What's up? It's frickin' Burr. Letting the truck warm up a moment before I was letting the truck warm up for a moment before I was backing up. No. Drove north to the folks' place because they had some papers here I needed to sign. Dealing with my disability stuff and everything. Which I get to deal with that in February. Oh. But brr. No, I came up this way, so not only could I deal with the paperwork, getting them signed, I was supposed to have those folks, sorry it's so dark, I was supposed to have those folks, I wonder if this will help. Where is it? There it is. Well, no, not really, but you can at least see my cherry. But, no, while I got halfway up here and they sent me a message, let me know they weren't going to make it up, and they would let me know when they were back up in that direction so that they could, and I'm going, you're not going to go check out the house. I'm not worried about it, you know. I'm not going to say anything rude to them like that, but the way I, looked at it, it was like, just, that's where I struggle with people really bad. Just be direct. And because people have used those same types of responses on me before, not necessarily just with the house, but with, we've all heard that same shit. And we all at some point have probably said it too. Because you don't want to upset the person, but it's like, just tell the person, like, hey, we're not really interested. Whether you thought the place was nice or not, it's just simply, it doesn't matter. It's like, we're not really interested. Still keeping our options open, but at least be direct about it. And I'm realizing, I'm seeing all this communication bullshit that I'm seeing amongst people, and then people wonder why people start arguing and fighting and all this other bullshit. And it's like, I spoke with not really spoke. Got messaged by a friend. They've been going through a hard time, and because turns out they're going through the same shit I am, and they're even going through technically the same shit, even where might as well say where my narc's concerned. And as far as I know, because I don't know how necessarily the whole details, but even my ex-wife may have been, had been dealing with here or there with our child. And the more I hear about this from other parents in my age group and their kids who are in their, let's say late teens into their late 20s, that 10-year chunk, they're all acting the same way and treating their parents like shit. And it's always for something, whether they're parents like me. I'm disabled and not rich, so that's why I was a bad parent. And then they want to dig up anything and everything they can to kind of keep that decision going. So it's like, that's why I removed myself and made it clear. I already made it clear to my narc that I don't ever want to see or talk to them again. As in my kids. My kids are grown as adults. And I know at least my younger son, I raised him, and I have faith in him to be more than capable to make it on his own. He's been doing pretty good on his own as is, so they don't need me around. I don't want to be around. They're gonna, that type of thing. They're gonna treat me like shit. I'm not gonna be around to keep getting treated like shit, and then people get mad because of how I respond to react to it. That's the same with anybody else. And it's not just this generation, of kids. My generation, of other adults, because I'm seeing it in other people. They have no problems treating you like shit. They have no problems lying to you. They have no problems stealing from you. They have no fucking quarrel with the idea of manipulating you or anything like that. Using you. But the moment you react or respond, guess what? You're an abusive piece of shit. You're a bad parent, you're a bad girlfriend, a bad boyfriend, something. It's not okay for you to respond to somebody's abuse. You know what I have to say about that at this point? Because I've dealt with so much of it that I finally hit my wall a couple years ago, technically. And ever since then, I've been slowly trying to piece myself back together and trying not to allow certain specific people to allow me to not necessarily allow, but to push me into something that I'm not. And so I'm not going to put up with people's shit at this point. I'm going to speak up and defend myself. After so many fucking years of the cortisol just fucking pumping through me because of all this shit. All this shit. Anybody who's been through narcissistic abuse, they're the only ones that can really genuinely understand what I'm talking about. Outside of the doctors who have to treat the victims of that shit. And it's not just that for me, because I'm still, after what I went through with my narc, yeah, like I told them, they took every scar and wound that I had, and they ripped them all wide the fuck open. Because of them, and it's not like I'm trying to say that in a bad sense. It's a ripple effect. Because of that, I end up looking back on everything. Okay, what caused me to be so susceptible to allow somebody to do what they did so easily to me? And it goes back to my childhood and growing up, the abuse I dealt with between siblings and my mother and cousins and aunts and uncles, all of it, school, all of it. I was practically groomed to allow people to fucking abuse me. And the moment I stand up for myself, that's the moment they all want to scream that I'm a fucking evil person. I'm not allowed to speak up for myself, nothing. Not a damn thing. They're allowed to fucking gaslight you, abuse you, do anything and everything they can. And I'm watching this with these other people, these other others that I know, these other friends that are telling me about what they're going through, even with their own children that are in the same age group as mine. And it's like, you know what? All you're confirming is it's that entire fucking generation. You didn't do anything wrong. What you did is your fucking best as a parent. You gave it your fucking all, and no matter what you would have done, because we're seeing it even in these kids that are in the same age group between the late teens and late 20s, acting the same way, treating their parents just as shitty, and that's these kids who grow up in these extremely rich and privileged homes. And it doesn't matter what race, color, religion, whatever you are, we're seeing it across the board. We're watching that entire 10-year generation treat their family like shit. And we can see some of the people from my generation, those who are in their 40s, act this way, and then they wonder why their kids are acting this way. It's like I made the comment. I saw this post online from, I want to say a couple weeks ago. And they're sitting there trying to figure out why today's kids are so hard to deal with. And it was this video thing from TikTok that somebody posted on Twitter. And they're talking about these school teachers, and some of them are, 21, 22 years old and going into their 30s. They're in my kids' age group, and they're bitching about this next generation about being so difficult. They're going, why are these kids so hard, blah, 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 blah. Well, because of your generation. And on top of it, my generation. All you have to do is look back to the Woodstock 99 generation, the Jerry Springer, the Steve Wilkos generations. It's the same generation. You don't have to question why these next two generations are so fucking difficult to deal with. Why they're so fucking selfish, and why they think all that matters is money. They base love on money. And because our generation, by majority, wasn't taught how to love people, not based on material and monetary things and gain, going, oh, your credit score's not this, then I can't be with you. Or you don't have that much money in your bank account, or that kind of job, or this type of stuff, I can't be with you. But I can use you. I can use you at least for a little while, manipulate you and fuck you up more, and actually make it harder on you to do what you need to do to progress in life so that I can go have fun. That's what you're giving. And so people like that, there's no question why this next generation has turned out the way they have, and why the kids following them is turning out like they have. We talk about accountability. Nobody's taking it. They're always fucking passing it. And then those who are taking it are not being recognized for it, because people seem to think that they're just like the rest. I'll be back. I gotta run to the market, alright? I'm gonna pause this and I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm back. You know, I kind of, you know, during this time and learning about all this shit, not about just the abuse that I, you know, myself has dealt with and some of the different forms of it, learning about the effects of it, and directly learning about it personally because I'm going through it. That's how I've been trying to learn how to find ways not just to cope, but find a way to have an outlet. That's why I utilize this as like a form of therapy, because I don't have the insurance and don't have the money to go get a doctor and go talk to a real therapist, and I know I need to see one. You know, I mean, personally, if I could afford it, I would use the Better Health thing. I do like that, and I will say that anytime I bring that up. I liked my doctor I had on there that I was utilizing at the time. But, I'm trying to decide if I want to get a snack or something, because I'm just not really necessarily in the mood for some pizza. I like pizza, but when you eat so much from certain places, you get that, what is it called? It's called like flavor fatigue or something like that, and it can make you feel sick. But, you know, I started looking back even on all the little terms like my parents have said to me over the years. It's like, you know, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. You know, like every time my mom fucking whooped my ass, whether with a leather belt or busting whatever wooden fucking kitchen utensils she had over my ass. And we're not talking with pants. My bare ass at my ankles fucking getting the shit beat out of me. I still remember her breaking a fucking wooden spatula, getting mad, grabbing another one, breaking that, a spoon, and then going on to the fucking hammer. Do I hate my mom after all? No, I don't. I just don't like what happened. I still love my mom, of all things. I actually forgive her. It's just those wounds were reopened through this whole process from dealing with one person, and they themselves don't realize and don't seem to care to realize what damage they create. People like that don't seem to care. And then we wonder why, like I was saying, this next generation has become like they have. They really have no genuine remorse. It's anything like that. It's specifically about them and what they can get. My generation fucked up in believing that money makes the world go round, that money is everything, and that money is love. That I don't know what kind of fucking parents they had, but it's fucked up as the things that I went through primarily my mom growing up, because my dad, yeah, he was a drunk, but he was more or less verbally abusive. My mom was the physical one. My dad was, if he wasn't there, he was either gone in the military, he was with the military, so he was either gone overseas. And as a kid, he was primarily, at that time, when I was a kid, he was either getting stationed between West Germany doing wall duty, Korea, or I want to say Okinawa was the other. But those are the places that he was primarily getting stationed at when I was a kid. And so, at that time, because my mom didn't want to keep moving with my dad to the different places, that's when she would stay like either in Virginia at the time or at my grandma's. through a lot of that too, and all that, until my dad got restationed up in Fort Lewis, and then we all moved up there with him then. But so I had a dad that was a workaholic and an alcoholic for a long time there. My dad got over his alcoholism, but that's still because of things that we dealt with in the family that revolved somewhat around that. When my dad drinks, we get worried about it. It's not about how my dad fucking acts while he's drunk. My dad gets like super talkative when normally he's really quiet. He gets super talkative and then he tells you dad jokes, I guess you could say. But he was never really a mean drunk. My dad was just quirky or whatever. I don't know how you want to put it. He was never a mean drunk. But it's how my mom acted and reacted to my dad's drinking, and that's when it was bad. And that's why it's like, no. It's just, regardless of the shit I went through dealing with my parents, they taught me they obviously taught me what, at least the proper values and shit like that when it comes to loving your family. And part of that was because my mom's family was very much abusive towards her and all of us. And through her, I would get it from her. I got it from my aunts and uncles and cousins directly at times. I know relayed abuse or transferred abuse, same thing to me. Or where a person gets abused and then they turn around and abuse the next person the same exact way. I know what all that is. I went through it growing up. And then there's some forms of abuse that I'm thankful that my parents got me help on. And that's where, if people want to have problems where it gets to a point where when people start, where they put me through enough shit, eventually I pop and I stand up and respond and react and defend myself. They can go talk to my doctor, Dr. Linda Nishi-Stratner and George Drinka, if he's still alive. And go talk to them on why I respond to shit like that, because I was literally, not just by my parents, but by my doctors. Because of what my brother did to me and the abuse that I went through on that, I was literally fucking raised. And when somebody abuses you, you fucking speak up and you defend yourself. You don't let them keep doing it. And even if somebody is not listening, whether it's your parents, another family member, a sibling, and you're telling these people what's going on, you keep fucking speaking up until someone listens. You have every right to defend and protect yourself. Your family, when they abuse you in any way, shape, or form, in that moment, is no longer your family. They're no different than a fucking stranger. And when they don't like how you react or respond to their abuse, and then they want to punish you more for how they abuse you, and because you reacted to that abuse and that shitty ass treatment, you have every right to treat them the way they treat you. You have every right to defend yourself. You have every right to walk away and permanently sever it with them. Just as you have the equal right to give them so many chances before you say, you know what? There's a lesson to be learned in this, and yes, I and I'm speaking on that, third person type metaphor thing. I have lessons to learn from all this because I kept going back to these people and allowing these people to make me believe that they're not going to do this, but every time they do, they progress it worse to try and maximize the effects of things, to try and get as bad of a reaction out of you or an effect out of you so that they can turn around and fucking abuse you some more by screaming abuse after they abuse the shit out of you, and you eventually snap and react to it. And they're going to keep doing it, especially when they learn that they can even utilize law enforcement to help them do it and get away with it. They don't care about what they're doing is fucking wrong. All they care about is that they get their little revenge. And I've seen this shit happen too many times. This has happened to me. And I've seen this happen to others. I've seen kids do it to their parents. I've even seen parents do it to their kids. Oh, my mom used to do it. My mom used to lock me in my room to keep me from leaving, to get away from her. Because I did not want to fight and argue with my mom. She'd lock me in my room. If I tried to shut the door and lock the door to keep her out, to stop the fighting, she would force her way into the room. She'd basically break into the room. She'd force her way in. So no matter what, I had to deal with her. And she'd intentionally gaslight, antagonize, but not by basically, well, when you're trying to leave to get away from the situation, to stop the fighting and arguing so that you can calm down and they can calm down, and all they want to do is lock you in a room and block you from leaving, what do you think that's doing? And as soon as they got that reaction, as in my mom, as soon as she got that reaction, she would turn around and call the police. And the police would come out every time. I've been tasered once. I've even had a dog released on me once. Because of my own mother. I have a scar on the back of my head from being pistol whipped because my mom called the police, tried telling them that I had a weapon and was trying to hurt her and my dad. And I had left. My best friend Jess was on the phone. And you know what they did? I get up to the corner of Leland and 213. It's like a mile, yeah. Got up to the main road. As soon as I get there, this cop pulls up, lights going, doors open, guns drawn, drop the weapon. I'm going, what fucking weapon are you talking about? All I got is a cell phone. I don't have anything. What are you talking about? I got cigarettes and a lighter. Is that a weapon? Drop the weapon. I don't have a weapon. Do you know what happened? It's like, all right, guys, like, you know, when they told me to get on the ground, I'll get on the ground, and I did everything they did, and I had my phone there. My brother got to listen to it because I wasn't going to fuck with anything. And what happens? They jump on me. I end up with fucking a pistol right in the back of my head. I've got a scar back there. And you know what they found? Not a fucking thing but my cell phone, my cigarettes, my lighter, and my wallet. My narc has used that same exact tactic. I grew up with my mother doing that to me for years. Then she wondered why I started resenting her. My mom tried doing that here about 3 months ago, and that was the first time my dad stepped in. Ever. And I kept telling her, I was like, you need to stop. I'm not going through this with you again. I'm not repeating my childhood. And I started shut the door, and was trying to lock it. And when she did it, she's trying to force her way in. And I said, you need to stop. You've had strokes. No, you need to stop. We're not repeating my childhood. My dad could hear what's going on, and he ends up finally telling my mom, like, you need to stop. He told you to stop many times. You need to stop. Go sit down and calm down. And the situation stopped. I don't know how many times as a child my mom would grab me by my fucking hair and just wring my head back and forth as hard as she fucking could. Threatening to kill me, wishing I was never alive. I was never fucking born. Yet, on the other side, on the flip side of that, she'd tell me how I was her miracle baby and her Hawaiian souvenir because she had her tubes tied after my middle brother, and it was like 8 years later she decided to get her tubes untied because she found, basically, it was around that time, yeah. Her older sister, the only older sister she has, but she's got a lot of siblings. They're the two older of a bunch of kids, basically. Like eight, 9 kids, something like that, my mom's family. But, aside from that shit, but to tell me that she went and had her tubes untied just so she can have me, but I got to hear that while simultaneously get to hear what kind of piece of shit I was, and how much she wished she you know, basically wish I was dead, never born, and then I'd also get to listen for years how the only reason why she stayed married to my dad was because of me. Now, I'm supposed to deal with that from my narc, too, right? And anybody else who deals with that shit, you're expected by your abuser who does that to you, whether it's a parent, a step-parent, a sibling, you're expected to take that abuse. I was not taught to do that, and I took those teachings to this day. Even if it gets your ass kicked, your teeth knocked out, hell, even if it fucking lands you in a grave, at least you died knowing that you fucking stood up for yourself and defended yourself, even when nobody fucking would believe you. I grew tired of people treating me that way. And when my mother, back then, did that shit, after I got pistol whipped that fucking night, it was about a month later, she started her shit again. And you know what I did finally that night? Because that was probably the 7th or 8th time my mom had done that in just a couple years. And she'd have me thrown in a fucking hospital for 2-3 weeks at a time. And sometimes for a month. And then would show up at the hospital as if she was my savior. She was the reason I got put there. Because she would not allow me to leave the house to get away from her. That's how I got raised and grew up. I'm glad my kids had such a horrible time. It's mainly my younger one. My older one does have some arguments to say where his stepdad and shit's concerned. I give him some props. I give him respect on that. My younger really actually has zero place to say anything. But I had to go through that as a child growing up. Listening to my mom do this shit. And so looking back on how I was raised, the fact that it took my doctors to teach me and my parents that it's okay for me to defend myself and protect myself, even from family. So as I was saying, it was like a month after my mom pulled that shit, and that was like the 7th or 8th time that she did it, over the course of a couple of years, I eventually snapped. I ended up taking a big-ass fucking kitchen knife. I think I was like 17 at the time. I fucking snapped. No, I was like 19 or 20. And my mom kept doing this shit from like the time I was 16, 17 on. And she did this up into my early 20s. And until I fucking snapped. And I grabbed that fucking knife and I said, if you're gonna keep fucking doing this, and you keep accusing me of shit I'm not doing, then I'm gonna fucking do it, so you have a reason to call the police. And I chased her ass around my dad's fucking old 2-door Ford Explorer Sport in 94. Right in front of a school bus and right in front of the cop that lived next door. And I was yelling, screaming at her at the top of her lungs, at my lungs, while she's got the cops on the phone. And I'm sitting there going, if you're going to keep accusing me of shit I'm not doing, then I'm going to fucking do it, so you have a reason to fucking keep doing this shit to me. People have their fucking limits. It doesn't matter if you are the child of a shitty parent or you are a parent of an ungrateful, shitty fucking child. You don't have a right to abuse people or be abused. And you have every right to stand up and speak for yourself and defend yourself. Whether they like it or not. And when I see people act that way, I don't care if you got a penis or a vagina. I call that as acting like a man. So if you want equality, you're going to start getting treated like a man. If you're going to act like a man to intentionally try to do harm to somebody by doing that, just like a man would pull some bullshit to intentionally try to do harm to you when it comes to a shitty man, you're going to get treated like a shitty man. Because a real woman and a real lady does not act that way. There are things that my grandparents, my grandmother, both of them, my grandma Brazil and my grandma Duncan, both of them, that I watched them do in certain situations that my mom never did. My grandma did do some shit that, yeah, I still remember the hair, grab my fucking hair and, oh, no. There's some shit that happened as a child that, no, and I don't want to, I'm trying not to smear my own family. But I'm using it as an example for people to realize that you have right to defend yourself. It doesn't matter who the person is creating the abuse. Whether they're a man, a woman, or your fucking child. They are a teenager. If they have the body of an adult, they're more than capable of dealing with the reaction and responses of how they fucking treat people. If you as a parent taught your children not to act that way and they continue to do so, they are responsible for the reaction and responses of the people they abuse. Man, woman, or child. And like I said, that child has the body of an adult. And especially if they're over the age of fucking 12, they know right and wrong. They know yes and no. And if they don't know if something's right or wrong, by that age, their fucking guts and their intuition will tell them, no, this isn't right, because they'll feel it. And if they choose not to listen to it, it's on them. Just as it was on me at that age, when I would make a stupid choice and do something stupid, I had to deal with the prizes that I got for playing stupid games. People do not have the right to treat their family or strangers like shit and expect people to just take it. And when it's going on for long periods of time, to a point that you successfully change a person's character for the worst because it's so repetitive and non-stop, you are responsible for that change because you just damaged a human being who has to be on a constant lookout for their own well-being, whether it be physical, mental, or all of the above. I'm downright tired of listening to how all these fuckers out there, and I don't give a shit how old you are, whether you're, like I said, you're a 13, 14-year-old punk and you got the body of a grown-ass adult, and you're going to abuse your parents have every right to treat you the way you treat them. Otherwise, you have I'm sorry, the only right you have is to take the consequences of that treatment, of how you treat people. That's what you get for a right. As adults, what do you think happens? As you get older, you're expected, not necessarily expected, but it just kind of comes natural, I guess, that as you get older, you are growing out of this type of bullshit. And by your 30s and 40s, you should have already grown out of a lot of that shit. And if you're still doing the same shit that you did in your 20s and your teens, there's something fucking wrong with you, not the people that you're abusing. And if all you can worry about is how they're reacting to your abuse and how you treat them, and even when they communicate and repeat nonstop, and all you want to do is not listen, not look, and certain words break through. Oh, you said this to defend yourself, and you're not even listening to what's going on, and it then twists shit up, and then takes that whole thing to a whole different issue of now it's about what you said instead of what's actually going on. I have a big problem with people like that, and people like that need to be locked in a fucking padded room to get help. Why is it okay to take their victims and force their victims to be the ones getting locked in those padded rooms? Why is it okay for their victims to be locked in hospitals? Why is it okay for their victims to be locked in jails and prisons while they're out doing it to more than one person? Because once they got away with it once, they do it again, and they keep going. And the entire time, they'll tell you they're the victim. Is this for every person out there doing, that's it? No, I kind of put this in the same pool of not everybody's getting raped just because they have a vagina. Because statistically these days, by statistics, every single woman has been. That would mean a large chunk of men would be too, because basically you might as well say let's say for every 3 women that's been abused that way in life, there's been a male that's been abused the same way. And statistically, that means every single fucking one of them has been. Does that mean it doesn't happen by my argument? No. A lot of people have been abused. But it's too easy. We've created a situation where these days it's really easy for the abusers to claim victim and for the victims to be accused of being the abuser. We created this situation where the real victims are being ignored while the fake ones are being applauded and appreciated. The real victims recognize each other. There's something I've picked up even within people who've dealt with any form of abuse tend to connect really well with other people who've been abused. Where they become disconnected is when they become the abuser. Because like every situation, the way I look at it, in any form of abuse, one of two things happens from that, in a sense. And I'm not going to talk about the necessary mental effects and all that shit. 2 things happen when it comes to people when being abused. It doesn't matter the abuse. the victim does one of two things happens to the victim. They either basically learn from that, whether they get help or not, and they don't repeat that. And in the long run, they end up with some form of trauma where they will never trust a person like that again. And it could be a personality trait. Hell, it could be like, in a sense, like a dog. If a dog was abused by somebody with a beard, they're probably not going to like somebody with a beard. And we all recognize that. I'm pretty sure most people recognize that example. It applies to people. And so, the other situation that a victim it can easily turn to is they end up turning into the very person that they were abused by. And then what happens from there, from that person, because usually when you got these two people, let's say two people got abused by the same person, what happens? They each got a 50-50 chance that one of them doesn't continue the abuse. It stops with them. Instead, they're learning from it and possibly may or may not get help from it, but they don't repeat it. They realize that this was not good and they don't let it happen. But the other person, let's say it happens the other way, where they end up repeating that abuse. Guess what? They just took that abuse. Now it's like a disease. Now it's being passed on like an STD. Because now they're doing it. And they're going to do this to so many people. And out of so many of those people, some of those people are going to come out of it just as fucked up as the other. But those people are going to do what that first one did. They're going to learn from it. They may or may not be able to get help from it, but either way, they're going to learn a way to live or cope with it in a more healthy way than the ones that end up repeating that abuse and keeping it going. That's a ripple effect within abuse. Like I said, it's like an STD. It does not stop until it's addressed directly. And sadly, when the victims become the victimizers, the abusers, they have to face their actions too. I've had to face my actions as a teenager and other times growing up and all for how I reacted to things. You know, just like I said, when I chased my mom around with that big ass fucking knife, my dad was right there. My dad knew what was going on, understood what was going on. I had no urge to hurt my mom. But I got tired of being accused of something I wasn't doing. I got to relive those moments with my narc. And I know, like I said, I know in previous videos, I know she watches these, she subscribes. I don't hate her. I do love that woman, but what I do hate is what she's done. And she finds ways to justify it. It's like, how do you correct these situations unless that person gets some real genuine help or actually recognize what they're doing is fucking wrong? And the reason why people start to react and treat them that way, or otherwise do the other situation where, you know how people, you got the situations where you got people who will either respond and react to your abuse, or you get the people who just walk away, vanish, and then cut you off and have nothing to do with you, which in some ways they're the stronger person walking away, but it also doesn't teach that person necessarily to stop, because eventually that person walks away, they're going to recontact that person that they walked away from at some point, especially when it comes to a narc or when it comes to family. Eventually, there's going to be a contact again. Yet then again, when you're in a situation, you don't have that ability to just turn and walk away. Like in mine, I owned the home that they lived in, that they didn't want to leave. They had right to use me, cheat on me, have me pay their bill, pay the living expenses, try to force me into getting a job to pay their bills. I go get a job to pay their bills, only to be guilted and treated like shit because I was making as much money as they were without a college degree. Only for the first full day of work, to come home to be treated like shit, abused, to the point that I had a straight meltdown. Only to be followed through my house, being told that to stop being a piece of shit and I'm an asshole. Till I fucking snapped. Did I try to argue my actions when they happened? No, I went and fucking took responsibility for my response to that situation. Did anybody get beat up and get the shit beat out of them? No, they didn't. They got slapped. Is that shit okay? No, it's not. I got what I deserved for that. It was the shit that came after that she pulled that I did not deserve. She began utilizing the legal system as abuse. As soon as she knew that she could gaslight a situation to that and get law enforcement to believe that I was this big piece of shit, the way she got all these other people to, that's called triangulation. If you don't know what triangulation is, go Google it. Go web search it. Go DuckDuckGo it. That's exactly what she did. And in this case, she utilized the legal system to triangulate them and myself to the point that I couldn't call 911 for help. I got blocked on that. I'd call 911, they'll answer, but they would not help. They'd just take the report and whatever. I could have been getting murdered. They wouldn't have fucking came and helped. Not once did they fucking respond when there was an emergency at my house. So I knew I could not call for help. That's the shit she did. She got me labeled as crazy. She got all this shit. And because she works as a state, county government employee, she's protected. So, for most part, unless you have enough proof, which I'm going to leave a lot of shit out, but if you have enough proof and their employers see it, the state won't protect them all the way. They'll protect them to a certain point and still do certain things in their benefit while other things are being dealt with. And then what happens after that? Fact is that when a state employee commits abuse, they get protected by the state. And when the person they're abusing stands up and protects themselves, they're the ones who get labeled as the abuser. Even when someone like that, even after they learn that the person that they're with is autistic, so they continue the abuse to get those reactions to scream victim. You couldn't say anything to her without being called an abusive person. You could not say shit. And when you try to communicate, this is what you're met with. See, what that's called, and I bet some of you got a little annoyed by that too, by yeah. Like, why is he just sitting there quietly? When you're trying to communicate with somebody and that's what you're met with is silence, that's called stonewalling, and it's also called silent abuse. It's a form of gaslighting and manipulation. Because the moment you go and react to that, and you start to get angry, you know what's going to happen next? They're going to turn around and focus on your reaction and how you respond to that. To that abuse, because that is abuse. And when they do it to you every time you try to communicate with them, what they're doing is they're taking the attention off the problem or themselves, and they're putting it onto you, because now the whole subject now, instead of becoming whatever problem or issue that you're trying to communicate with them with so that you guys can fix some shit, they avoid it altogether by then making the argument about you and how you react or how you responded, and nothing gets touched on or happens. So then the moment you start to respond to that abuse, you start getting angry because they're doing that to you. Imagine talking to them and their attitude is this. Right? And then shut the door in your face while you're talking to you. Or while you're talking to them. Or they walk down the hallway and go in the room and shut the door and they sit down and start watching TV. Or they proceed to go and do laundry or do dishes. Or if they're on the phone, they put the phone on speaker so that they know whether or not you're talking. And they'll go do dishes, they'll go do laundry, they'll start sweeping and mopping. But anytime you're there visiting, they don't do any of that. They're mostly on their butt in their PJs watching TV while you're there and sleeping. Otherwise, by majority. But the moment you react or respond to that treatment, you're abusive. I've watched even my own kids pull some of that shit. Oh, how dare you talk to your child that way? That's called gaslighting and manipulation. That's abuse. It's like, how dare you talk to your fucking parents that way and treat them like shit, and then when they fucking call you on it, you want to come back like a smartass like that. This generation don't give a shit. We raised a generation of narcissists. A bunch of self-righteous, basically overprivileged bastards that think that they could never do wrong, and that this generation is obligated to give them everything. And I know some people watching this, they're probably sitting there like, ha ha ha, well, Grandpa did this. They obviously don't know shit. They really don't. Those who think that they know what's been going on in my life and where my home and other things are concerned, they really don't know shit. Because I have been paying for that the entire time. My parents did what any real parent should do. And I would have done it for my kids if they weren't fucking pricks. And that was cosign. Your kids can't do it on their own, and they need a cosigner. If you trust your kids enough, and they've shown that they can pay their fucking bills, then help them. I know there's a particular young man, at least his wife does watch this from here and there time to time. Needs to think about that when he went to his grandpa and got his grandpa to help him get an RV, and then he hasn't been really paying. He starts fucking with his grandfather's credit by fucking with his payments on paying him. Let's take the heat off that, and let's focus it on their dad, who's paid their bills and not once had to have my older brother or younger. Or if I had a younger brother, then it would be a younger brother in that case. But in my case, neither of my older brothers had to call me to find out why I'm not paying my bills. I will go hungry, and I will continue to look like I've crawled out of a fucking dirty hamper, so long as it means making sure my bills are fucking paid. There are things that I get help with at times from family, thankfully. Because that's what family does. They're not supposed to be there to pay your way. They're not supposed to be there to do all that shit. But family, it's not an obligation or anything like that. It's just something that family does. It's you're helping each other. You're there for each other. Just as myself and my oldest brother has been there to help my parents out. The same way my parents have been there for us. I don't go looking at my mom and dad and go, Dad, because you were a fucking drunk and a workaholic and you were not around, and Mom, because the way you fucking treated me like I was a fucking action figure, basically, and put me in some really bad positions to be abused for so long. I don't need to help you. You got what you feel that I owed you was paid back through that. It's not right. That's why with the sale of my home, and as much as my dad keeps fucking telling me, he doesn't need it and all that shit, it's like, no, I'm doing this because you guys helped me out, and that's part of the sale of my home is going to help fix my parents' floors in their home. It's going into the same amount of money that they helped me with when it came to getting some of the repairs paid for in my home. I'm paying my parents back. I'm holding up my part of the bargain while a bunch of people who really don't know anything that has been going on, what's been agreed upon, and what the whole scenario was to begin with. I'm doing my part. If I was to be treating my parents the way I've seen some of these other kids treat their parents, the way I'm listening to some of my friends, how their kids are treating them, the way I watched my narc, I don't know how to take listening to myself say that either, because part of me, it's like, it's almost becoming kind of like, no, that's my narc, you keep your fucking hands off her, that's mine. But then it comes to others, even to them, it's derogatory, and it's like, right now, it's just, I just don't want to say their name. Where some people know who I'm talking about, not everybody watching this, and I would like to just try to keep it that way. But I watched them go through that shitty fucking treatment from their kids, not just our son, but from their other 2 kids. Primarily a specific one. And I watched that treatment. I watched the shit that their dad pulled, only for them to blame their mom. See, I got to watch, in essence, everything that my mom did to me, plus everything that I watched her go through with her last marriage. It's not like she got married again. She's been married once. But with her last marriage or whatever, and then everything that she bitched about and complained about what her mom did to her and what her mom did to her dad is everything that my narc did to me. Like, she went all out. And is, even to this day, tries to argue and justify it. I mean, she's quicker to defend the man that she fucking cheated on me with than she has been to defend the man that she has said that was her soulmate and she's wanted to marry for all these years since we were in high school. If you genuinely believe that and love somebody like that, why would you cheat on them? And why would you treat them like shit because they're not rich and because you want to impress your mommy? The same thing goes with the guys out there that do this shit. It's not just women, it's not just men. They both do it. There's a lot of really fucked up people out there. And there's a lot of people who took the abuse that they went through as a child and used that as a justification for them to go abuse other people. That's not okay. And when they go to deal with somebody who's gone through that abuse, who were taught that they have every right to stand up for them and defend themselves, they don't like that. Because they end up running into somebody who knows what they're fucking doing. And who will eventually stand up and respond to it in a way that they won't like. I know my narc, I told her a long time ago, years ago, and she'd always hold over my head. I wouldn't be with her. I wouldn't solidify a relationship with her for months and all this shit. And I told her what I was afraid of. She knows exactly what that conversation is. And yeah, where I was afraid things were going to go. Told her, I was like, if I have to deal with this shit, I'm going to react this way. She knows. Because I can't take that abuse. And I would expect any man or woman to fucking defend themselves when they're being abused. To stand up for themselves. Nobody has the right to manipulate you. Nobody has the right to fucking cheat on you and lie to you for any fucking reason. And if somebody feels comfortable enough to lie to you something that's really stupid, redundant, and just like pitiful, like, why would you even bother to lie about that? And then it shows you that they're willing to lie to you about anything. When you start paying attention to what they say, not just about their friends, but about the person their people they're with, and you start paying attention that every ex-girlfriend or every ex-boyfriend, that type of thing, was a piece of shit, just remember, they're going to say the same thing about you. Because we all know how it usually is. When you start looking at someone's track record and it's the same thing every fucking time, you start to realize the problem really isn't the other people. They may have they weren't perfect, but it shows where the common denominator of that problem is, and that's that person. And either that person needs to start recognizing that they're the factor to those problems, and it will always be that way regardless of what number of person they're with. if they continue to act that way, treat people that way, and expect to be treated a specific way while they do the complete opposite to others, it won't ever work. If they think gaslighting and manipulating and doing all this shit is okay and justifiable so that they can get a reaction and then go run around and claim that they're a victim, that's not okay. Those people one day will end up with somebody who will make them a real victim. And that shit bothers me. Even with my narc. You can't go fucking running around doing the shit you're doing. Scream victim before you make the wrong person completely snap while you're in the process of assassinating their character and doing everything you can to destroy them as a person and everything around them. And they go, oh, I'm being abused. So going back to the beginning of all this, where our parents taught us as children, we were taught many things. And like I said, one of those things is, this is going to hurt you more than it hurts me. And it's because I love you. Right before we got our asses whipped. One thing that I do know that I will say that we did learn that is true, and we all do teach our kids this. If you and a friend are constantly having problems, or you and another person, you're constantly having problems, you're constantly arguing, and they're always blaming you for everything that's going wrong, but don't want to take any accountability, but they want to talk about how you don't take accountability. When you've been punished, you've done everything to do your part. Well, they haven't taken any responsibility at all, but play victim. After abusing people until they get somebody to blow up and snap, or treating people like shit, and then they just fucking go off on them. So what do your parents usually tell you as a child when you're dealing with a friend or another person this way that starts to gaslight you on a regular basis? You start fighting all the time? Well, here, if there's a problem, there's two denominators in that problem, in that equation, and one of them has to go for that problem to be solved. That means your child or their friend or whoever that person is, one of you has to walk away, as I was saying earlier. If neither is willing to find common ground to work those problems out and stop fucking the bullshit, then somebody has to walk away. And yes, you have right to stand up and defend yourself. And once you've said your piece, you've defended yourself, and you've wasted every fucking venue or alley or choice you've had, just shy of becoming the piece of shit yourself, like a genuine one. That's when it's time to walk away. That's when it's time to say no. I want no more of you. This applies to even, as I said earlier, this applies to even your own kids. As teenagers, you're going to have to deal with them until they get old enough to be adults, and then they can go fuck themselves if they want to keep treating you like shit. That's not an obligation thing. That is your responsibility as a parent. You signed up for it the moment you willingly allowed yourself to get pregnant. Whether you planned it or not, you willingly committed the act that got you there. So you signed up for that bullshit. But the moment they become adults, that's when they're on their own. You're not obligated to fucking carry their bullshit if they're going to treat you that way. With no recognition of their shit. And no actual genuine effort of trying to make a change. As I told my friend, this is the same thing that we tell our kids and we teach them. And we teach them this because we love them. And you don't go fucking, in essence, treating that other person that way because you hate them. You're doing it because you love them. Because it needs to happen no more. They don't need to keep doing it. That gets them hurt and other people hurt. And they don't need to keep hurting other people the way they hurt you. And sometimes you have to teach the person the lesson the same exact way that they taught you. Yet you can do so without doing the same exact shit that they did to hurt you. You don't need to step to their level to manipulate people into doing harm to you. You don't need to do any of that. You don't need to cheat. You don't need to go and gaslight them and then turn around and go, oh, see, when they start to react and go, oh, see, this is, and just focus on the reaction. You don't need to pull that bullshit. But you can definitely let them understand that what they're doing is not okay by letting them feel what they did. And I don't mean necessarily going outright, go hauling off and beating the shit out of them and be like, I told you twice, woman, now you got 2 black eyes. That's some fucked up shit. There's a certain limit there that it's like, no. That's when you know it's like, no. When people want to keep gaslighting and pushing things to try and get the worst reaction as they possibly can, this is what I'm going to tell you. Give them the worst fucking reaction that you possibly can within limitations, so long it doesn't outright, like you outright are straight up trying to like put someone in a hospital type thing. You have right to defend yourself. If somebody's punching you, do you not have right to swing back? If somebody's screaming at you, do you not have right to yell back? If somebody's manipulating you, lying to you, and cheating on you. Now this is where it becomes a twist. You don't have to lie to them. You don't have to steal from them. You don't have to cheat on them. Hell, you don't even have to manipulate them for them to feel what it's like on what they put you through. I would explain through this process, but I feel each individual person they really need to think about how they deal with that. Because the thing that I don't want people doing is going and doing something fucked up and really hurting someone. I don't want somebody going to jail defending themselves, killing someone by accident, or even on purpose. That's not the point of it. When you remove yourself from that equation, you do the least expected thing, the most, or should I say the least expected thing. When you've defended yourself, verbally spoke up for yourself, physically defended yourself, you've done everything you fucking could and wasted every venue and avenue you had to get this person to understand that what they're doing is fucked up and wrong. That's when you walk away and you leave. Don't announce it. Don't do anything like that. Hell, if you feel the need to sit down, visit with them, try to have friendly conversation, just so that way there's some level of, I guess you could say amends made. Just simply fucking vanish after that. It's just like as I told my friend where her kids are concerned. Just like I said where even my kids are concerned. It's not our responsibility to be obligated to be abused by them. And it's not our obligation to take responsibility for their shit and how they treat you. Or treat us. If that's how they're going to keep being, and they're going to keep blaming you for all the fucking bullshit that they're doing, and they're not willing to actually communicate and have a conversation regardless of the tone of voice. Because to me, it's the words that matter, not the tone. Because I understand that people get passionate, I understand people get upset, all that shit. What matters to me is that people are honest and direct. I don't care about your fucking tone. When you start to get into somebody's face and you're getting ready to swing, or you stand and square up, I don't care if you have a vagina or a penis. If you're going to square up and you're going to start acting like a man, you're going to get treated like a man. Nobody has a right to be abused. And nobody has a right to be gaslit to then be accused of being abusive. So that somebody can fucking go be a victim of their own fucking manipulation and their own bullshit. So that they can get away with that. I guarantee you, there's a lot of people in prison right now because they were being abused by somebody, and eventually they stood up and defended themselves. And eventually they end up doing what they thought they could do, because they couldn't get help. Nobody was helping them. Everybody turned the cheek. People called them liar, called them crazy, or started actually targeting them as the one doing this shit. Well, the real person is getting away with it. And they'll do it to the next person, because once you start seeing they have a history of doing it, yeah. Let me tell you something. Just as I told my narc, over the years, I've had conversations here and there with my different exes. All of them. Minus one, which that one there, I wasn't expecting a response from, but I still got one. And not in the typical expected way that you get a response. But I understood what they meant, and yeah, they appreciated what was said. They appreciated the communication, which let me know that they were okay. Where others I've had communication with throughout the years, off and on, and never had a problem with. Why? Because they recognized their part in things, and they didn't share the same hatred, and I can't say share. They didn't have hatred towards me. They had hatred towards the situations that we were putting each other through. We all recognized what our part was. My ex-wife, her and I, if it wasn't for certain factors, and it's something that I know our child hates, considering he's one of them fucking factors. The one thing that he didn't like is not just did my family recognize it, others recognized that my ex-wife and I, we didn't have a problem in our fucking relationship. That's why they don't understand everything that went on with it. We had some issues. It wasn't like a perfect relationship, but we didn't have all the shit going on. But we could have easily been friends if it wasn't for the external interference of other people. Because I don't hate my wife. After all the bullshit and gotten over the pain of what had happened and everything, and moving past all that, I've never held any hate or animosity towards my wife in my heart for what she did. It's just like with my narc. I don't actually have any animosity towards her. I don't hate her. I do forgive her for her shit. I hate what happened, and I hate how I got treated by her. And the fact that all she showed me was that I was not allowed to speak up when she treated me like shit. I was not allowed to speak up on behalf of our relationship when she would abuse the relationship and neglect it, breadcrumb it, everything. When she would prioritize everything else and expect it to just be there all the time. That I'm supposed to allow her to just treat me like I was the roommate that was just paying for all the bills and cooking for her and being the fucking live-in maintenance man while she got to sleep with whoever she wanted, talk to whoever she wanted, be friends with whoever she wanted. Because the moment I tell her about, getting to go, that I went out with a friend and had a Coke with them for like 30 or 45 minutes. I went on a date with a friend to go have a Coke with them. And it was actually nice to feel like I was wanted around by somebody. You know what she did immediately was, I was cheating. I was fucking other people. That's exactly what she did. But in her situation, it's okay for her to do this stuff. And in her defenses, it was just one guy. All I have to do is unlock those videos. Those videos are not private. They're unlocked. They're just not public. And you can listen to her yourself. That's why when it comes to some of this stuff, I'm very strongly opinionated on it. And that's why when it comes to having every right to defend yourself, when it comes to your abuser, I'm sorry, but your personal safety, your personal well-being, mental, physical, all that, overrides any fucking law when it comes to somebody abusing you. Because when it comes to abuse, whether they're doing it physically, mentally, or all of the above, It creates permanent damage. It's not a fucking cut that heals up and it's just a little scar that you can just pull a sleeve over, not look at it, and not think about it. It's something that affects you the rest of your life. And a lot of you women, I will say this, including my narc, knows what that's like when somebody abuses you in a certain way, that it sits with you the rest of your life. Understanding that perspective as a man, because I have dealt with similar abuses that a lot of women go through, that I went through from 3 to 5 on a regular basis. At least I can, I can't say at least women in general, they can at least recognize that when they speak up about their abuse, people 9 times out of 10 are gonna believe them. When a man speaks up, they're either not going to believe you or they're going to shame you because you're a man and you should have been physically capable of protecting yourself and keeping somebody from abusing you that way. Hell, if a woman does it, they shame you even more. Oh, you allow a woman to treat you that way? Why didn't you do this, that, and the other? Well, do you love your wife? Because a lot of these men that talk that way, a lot of them are married. They've been married to somebody for a while. And it's like, how much do you love that woman? Married or not, you've been in a committed relationship with them for, at least 3 to 5 years or longer. If you have, and your wife begins to treat you that way, come back and talk to me after that and tell me what you're doing then. I bet anything you will fight to stick to that and fight for your marriage. If you just immediately fuck you, I'm out. You didn't give a shit about your marriage to start with, and that's when your wife needs to think about that part too. It's kind of along the lines when I watch some of these young men in their 20s arguing to justify the murder of an unborn child and then say it's not a man's place to fucking decide type thing. Those are the type of men that you women out there need to pay attention to not having children with, because those are the guys who are going to talk you into killing your children because they don't want to be a daddy. I love my kids, and I would have been a part of my older son's life as much as I would have been for my younger son's life. But my older son's mom, my narc, did not allow me the opportunity or chance to be a dad to my older son the way my younger son's mom allowed me to be a dad to my younger one. Yes, 2 sons, 2 moms. And my narc, although my high school sweetheart, I met my younger son's mom back when I was 17. So right towards the end of high school, but by that point, yeah, I was kicked out of school. I was having a lot of troubles back then. But I went to work. I can't say back. I went to work. I was working my ass off then. I was getting my fucking paychecks garnished, everything. I was paying my child support. And I would get accused of not paying my child support, only to find out the state was fucking up and was sending one of my kids' mom's child support checks for both kids, instead of properly splitting it and sending it to the proper people. It was years later that I found out it was my younger son's mom. One of my kids' moms was getting all the payments, and they ended up being forced to have to pay that back, basically. I think it was my younger son's mom. And they didn't know until, obviously, all that shit was too late, as far as I understand, because I really don't know how the whole scenario worked out, because I didn't know. All I know is I worked, I was getting my fucking paycheck fucking garnished to the point I could barely afford fucking rent. And I didn't even bitch about the garnishment and all that, and not being able to afford rent because I was paying for my kids. The only part that I complained about is how hard it was. But that was on me. It was still on me. It was still my responsibility. I worked until I couldn't work anymore. And in fact, back then, I worked literally until my mom convinced me I was crazy and that I couldn't do it. And that was at the time that my NF2 was starting to develop and all this other shit was going on. That was at the time that my mom would lock me in my room and not let me out. Or she would block me in there and do all that shit. See, I recognized I was groomed to end up with somebody who's going to treat me the way my mom did. And that's why I kept telling my narc, I don't want to be with somebody that's going to be like my mom. I don't want the relationship that my mom and dad had. I love my mom and dad. And it should not have gotten, in my parents' marriage, should not have got to where it was for them to start having, I guess you could say, a peaceful, loving marriage to what it is now. Was it always chaos in their marriage? No. They had a lot of good times. But at different points in, growing up, my mom would tell you different. Oh, I'm miserable. I hate this. I was forced to marry him. It was a shotgun wedding. It was this. It was that. My mom talked a lot of shit about my dad. And I had to listen to it. Yet because I watched how my dad treated my mom. It wasn't one of those situations where my parents divorced and I couldn't see how my dad was and all that stuff when he was around type thing. And do that type of thing. Where all I could go by is what my mom had to say. I was able to see what my dad was actually doing and compare it to what my mom was saying. It wasn't like my older son's situation where his mom and stepdad dictated his relationship with me. And all he got to go by is what his mom and stepdad and grandma had to say. And a family that straight up was outright doing everything they fucking could to destroy my mom's life and her family. I was a target from the same exact people. My mom gave up talked my older son's mom into hooking up with my cousin and marrying him. It was like a weird peace deal between my mom and her older fucking sister, using my son's mother and my cousin as a fucking peace agreement. Like my older son's mom was a trade-off. And my mom thought, oh, we're gonna have this great relationship now I'm gonna finally have this great relationship now with my sister and her family and this, that, and the other. No, it made it worse. And in fact, it got bred into my son, basically. Got put into him. My son has parental alienation syndrome. If you don't know what that is, again, Google it, DuckDuckGo it, web search it, whatever. And if my son sees this, he needs to look it up and start thinking about all the shit that's going on, because that went on up until he was living with his grandma. I didn't even know when he was living with his grandma until she contacted me. Not his mom, his grandma. Which I respect his grandma for that. And I've always said that his grandma did a good job as a mom to my son. The part where I realized that she fucked up is the moral part. You don't raise a kid thinking that money is fucking everything. And you don't raise a kid to love people based on money. And what kind of job they have. Or what their status in life is, whether they're rich or poor. That's where I put the responsibility on her. Because she raised her daughter the same way. Because her own daughter has made the comment, well, money makes the world go round. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. No, that's not how it is. Money only has value because people gave it value. And the only reason why it has more value to those types of people is because they're fucking money grubbers. They're materialistic. They don't genuinely love people. They love what people have and what people can do for them. Anyways, I wasn't trying to ramble on for an hour and a half about this shit. But I do want people to understand it doesn't matter who you are or how old you are. And if you are a child that happens to watch this, which this is not meant to be for kids watching this, none of my videos are. None of them are intended for kids. Even ones that, like the firework ones, I mark them as not intended for kids. And I have some that are age, I think I had one or two that were age restricted that I just ended up just removing. But, because, yeah. No, none of this is for kids. This is for adults. But I do still believe that a child, if they're old enough to be able to speak, and they at least know, have an understanding that what's happening to them is not okay. Like, my mom's hurting me, or my dad's hurting me, or my brother's hurting me, or my sister's hurting me, or so-and-so at school is hurting me. They have right to say something. You need to start teaching your kids that it's okay to speak up when somebody abuses them. And quit hiding behind the bullshit argument of, oh, nobody will listen or believe me. This is why nobody will listen or believe you. Because this is the exact shit that we tell ourselves and our fucking kids half the time. That nobody will listen, that, oh, because you're a woman, you're claiming, oh, no, that can't happen. No, that's not true. Really, try being a man claiming that one. You'd be laughed out. People need to speak up. People have every right to defend themselves regardless of age and regardless of what gender you are and what gender or age your abuser is. You have right to defend yourself and protect yourself. You have right to say what you need to say. And if that person wants to proceed to continue their abuse and to continue to try and, gaslight and instigate it to get worse, they're responsible for the outcome of where that goes. Because they're being warned the entire fucking time when they're being told to stop. When they're being told that these behaviors, that way you treat people, need to stop. Because as long as you keep treating people this way, you're going to get the same response or reaction. And when you keep gaslighting it and instigating it and doing what you can to get as worse of reaction you can out of somebody, egging them on, is the easy term, I guess. You're responsible for that reaction or response. You're responsible for putting somebody you abused into jail or into a fucking hospital because they fucking lost it. You deserve, if you do that to somebody, you deserve exactly that. You deserve to be in the places that you put your victims into because of how you treat them for so fucking long with no care or remorse. All you do in the way, and those who try to say, oh, I care, I have remorse. Well, most people can tell you don't when you're quicker to justify or argue why you can treat people that way, or to focus on how somebody's responding to you treating them like shit. That says it all. You don't have remorse. You don't care. It's okay for you to abuse people. Your children treat you this way, and they're adults. Guess what? If you're a good parent, your kids are more than capable of being able to take care of themselves. They don't need you around. Go focus on your mental health and healing from the abuse that they put you through and having to cut your children off. And when they fucking grow up and they're ready to fucking talk to you and apologize for their shit, they can make the effort. It's not your obligation or responsibility to fucking clean up the shit that they do. They're grown-ass adults. It's on them. When they're more than capable. Because I understand there are kids out there that do have physical and mental disabilities that have limitations that make things hard on them. And yes, they're which leads parents to having to deal with shit that they really should not have to. And I think those parents, if there are any that end up watching this, they understand what I'm saying when it comes to those children. You need to treat those situations situationally or to that individual situation as it goes. Yet even then, if the kid is still more than capable of learning, they still have to take responsibility for their actions. Even though I went till I was 40 not knowing I'm high spectrum, I'm not going to use the argument that my parents should have never did what they did now that I know that I'm on spectrum. At times that I got out of hand, I deserved what I got. Yet for the majority of times, like I should say, like that time that I chased my mom with a fucking knife, I deserve what I got from that. You know what's odd about it? That was actually the first time that even the police that kept showing up, because there was a couple officers that at that point knew me by face and name because of my mom's phone calls and knew my dad and all that stuff. They didn't take that situation the way my mom wanted them to. And I was able to go get some proper help because of the way I was being abused by my mom. That's what was going on with that. I had to, go through a lot of shit. That's why when I had to deal with my legal situation and my attorney comes in with this fucking file, and there's just one single piece of paper in there, and he's looking at me going, do you know what this is? And I'm looking at him, no. There's your criminal record. And I was like, well, what's on it? Nothing. What they got on there were arguments. What they got on there was what my mom did to me. That's what they got. My attorney saw that I had gone through a lot of abuse as a child. He could see it in that file off of one paper. I'm not a career criminal. I don't have a history of doing the things that she had accused me of. And anytime I ever had done wrong, I took accountability for it. Whether I liked it or not, I took accountability for it willingly. Yeah, because I know what those damages do to a person. No person, male or female, has a right to abuse you. And if they do, then the only right that they've got in that process is the right to accept the response and reaction you have to that abuse. Now, if you take your response and reaction too far and you start beating on that person, like beating them up and doing serious harm to them, and even like in my case when I ended up snapping and slapping my narc, that's not okay. There comes a point where just like you have to learn from that, they have to learn from what they're doing. They can't keep doing that. Because what they're going to have is a whole history of people that they destroyed as human beings and fucked up to get where they're at. And the entire time they were the victim when the reality was it was all the people that they're treating like shit and abusing to get those reactions out of them so that they can claim abuse. So I don't talk to anybody. That's why a lot of people got severed. Once 2023 ended, there's a lot of people, I'll just put it this way, if they're watching this, if I'm not talking to you right now, I won't be talking to you ever again. That's just how it is. I learned some really hard fucking lessons the last few years, and I got to relive some serious fucked up abuse that I went through in my childhood with my narc. And it caused me to look at everybody around me. And when I started realizing how I even got treated by even some of my closest friends and started putting two and two together, finally doing good at math that I used to be really good at in elementary school and middle school and all. I used to be really good at math. But when I started to do the math and realized, no, I cut off all of them. I cut off every single fucking person that had any association with the shit talking and bullshit that my narc and my kids were involved with. One of them had to call me on an unrecognizable number the other day. I still love him. I was nice to him. I still talk to him. It was nice to hear from him. We just got to realize I'm not going to make the effort. My kid's got to fucking correct their shit. He's got to realize that he had no place to be brought in the middle of that and should have been the adult, considering he's older than me, to tell my kids to knock the shit off. You don't fucking treat your dad that way and go around and fucking get him fucking targeted even by his own friends. And treated like shit. That man knew me since I was in high school. Longer than those two boys were alive. It's like, I can respect the whole dad from dad thing, but when you get in and you start defending your friend's children's abuse towards their parent, basically, you're defending your... So if you're friends with somebody and their kids are abusing your friend, you're defending their kids and their abuse to your friend. That's not okay. There's no law. There's no way to justify it. There's no way to bring any reason or rhyme to it. When third parties start getting involved into your relationships, whether it's with your kids or your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, husband, wife, that is the responsibility of you as the two parties to tell people back to fuck off. Now, if it's your kids involved and they're fucking minors, not grown-ass adults, that's still kind of the adult responsibility to tell the kid, you know what, you need to stop. You need to shut the fuck up. You want your parents to respect you, you need to respect your parents. It's a two-way street right there. It's just like if you want your brother or sister to respect you, you need to respect your brother and sister. If you don't want them to respond to the way you treat them, then don't treat them like shit. You don't want your parents to eventually fucking snap on you, don't abuse your parents. If you don't want your kids to abuse you, or to eventually snap on you, don't abuse your kids. It's just... You don't go out abusing strangers and expect them to not react in the same way. And the ones who don't are the ones you end up seriously fucking harming and knocking out because you caught them off guard, like those punks would do with the knockout game thing. Where people just had no ability to defend themselves. She says people don't have right to come into your home and start accusing you of shit that you're not doing, make you out a fucking monster, and think that they're gonna walk out on top of the fucking world. They don't have a right to come into your house and abuse you and expect no response or reaction to that. In this day and age where people are screaming, I want equality. I want to be treated equal. Whether I'm a man or a woman, I want to be treated equal. You know what that entails? Every fucking facet of life that you want the equality in, you're going to get it. In this day and age, I've had enough of people fucking taking advantage of this shit. I'm going to be treated like an equal, but the moment I act like I'm above you and treat you like shit and you respond to that, you're wrong. That's not equality. I'm done hearing the arguments. Man or woman, you abuse somebody, you deserve what's coming in response to that. And you don't have right to take those reactions and those responses to go run around and scream that you've been abused. You don't have a right to gaslight somebody, incite somebody. And in fact, there's actual laws of that. You don't have the legal right to incite somebody to commit a violent act, even through gaslighting. And even if it means you becoming basically the target of that situation. When you go and egg somebody on, it's like standing there and staring somebody in the face, getting in their face going, come on, hit me. And they fucking sock you. Because you think that because they swung first, that you ain't going to get in trouble. No, what you did was called incitement of violence. You gaslit and incited somebody to swing on you, so you then can turn around and claim victim to throw them in jail. That's abuse, manipulation, and incitement of violence. That's actually illegal as fuck. You can't incite people to commit acts of violence, even if it's committing an act of violence on you. That's like those dumbasses who go out and pay somebody to fucking kill them, and the person who does it doesn't succeed, but ends up being the one in jail. That person who's paying somebody to do a hit on themselves type thing so they can collect on insurance, well, you know downright that person, if they survive, they're going to jail. If that person doesn't survive, their family loses out on that fucking insurance. Do you understand what I'm trying to say there? When somebody's doing something to intentionally get a reaction knowing that it's going to get them hurt so that they can take that to go fucking use that as the tool to fucking punish someone, the person that they're doing that to, that person deserves jail. That person deserves a fucking hospital depending on the severity of what they're doing. Anyways, thank you for watching. I carried this on way longer than I normally do because in all honesty, I'm pretty passionate about this shit because I'm really sick of people treating people like shit and then expecting others to just take it. Have a good night. Be safe out there. It's cold where you're at. Stay warm if it's warm where you're at and you're in the southern hemisphere. Don't get too hot. Stay cool. Drink some water. Have a good night and later.